Having to do the video again allows me to answer one of the questions from the previous one about how flat was the patch. Well, you can see there, it's just a very slight bow on it, which is why I'm not going to glue the thin slat and the grip on at the same time. I'll glue the thin slat on, clamped down well, then flatten that on the belt sander, then put the grip on top of that. One of the most important things is to make sure I've got rid of all the old glue, because you don't want to be trying to glue onto old glue, it just won't hold. And I've got the grip all glued back on, and I've been thinking about it, and it's that tricky dilemma of how you shape the fades, and I'm thinking a longer, thinner fade. I've drawn this line on there with a French curve, because the bit that needs to be stiffened really is only the section where it's narrowed, and a good deal of that will be covered with the binding. The bit that isn't covered with the binding should be allowed to flex slightly, so I don't want it too stiff, but it's all that compromise. At what point, you know, how stiff's too stiff. I'm even considering a little binding with thinner linen just at either end of the riser section as a belt and braces. I mean, it won't look particularly pretty, but would you rather have an ugly bow that works or a pretty one that's in pieces? I thought I'd try and show you how I grind on the belt sander. What I'll do is I'll get my head well down. I'll try and make sure that the back of the bow, well, and the belly, 'cause it's pretty flat, is parallel to the belt sander. You don't, if you angle it like that, you'll dig in one corner. Get my head well down, work on the curve of the nose there, so I can see what I'm doing and work along to that line. So you can see, even being very careful, I've just touched there and I'm out there. If I'd gone any further, I could have been cutting into the wood, so you've got to be very careful. Easy to make a mistake. I think that's what we call that's just on the edge of being a mistake. After that close call with the belt sander, I decided the rasp wasn't really any slower and I'd better control of it. But you can see the general shapes coming on. It's very difficult and painstaking to blend a curve into a flat fade. I'm doing the binding with the linen thread, and as I go round every sort of 4 or 5 turns, I'll pull it tight, knock it across with the smooth edge of that file, and just put a touch of low viscosity super glue on just to hold it in position. Comme ça, and just give it a massage it in with a bit of polythene or something over my finger, stops my finger sticking to it. That gives you the idea. It's a bit laborious because I'm keeping it pulled good and tight, but the trick of touching it with the super glue is good because it stops it unravelling, and it means I can stop there, go and have a cup of tea. This shows the linen thread binding. It's been soaked in low viscosity super glue and very lightly sanded, wiped over with Danish oil. This is a supplementary binding on the upper limb, and you can see it overlaps where that crack propagated, and also where the join in the ash slat and the ash riser is, so hopefully that will stop that shifting. Right, we're ready for the test, but doing this binding, I got that bit done first. It made me wonder, is it just psychological? Does that binding actually do anything? Does it add to the strength? So I measured the breaking strain of one strand, and on this coarse stuff it's 25 pounds. I measured how many strands every 10 millimetres. That was 8 strands, so number of strands in total. Multiply up the breaking strain, but you've got the strands this side, but you've also got the strands the other side. Well, if you do the arithmetic, it adds up £4,000. So it's over 1.5 tons clamping pressure effectively, and that made me realise it's worth doing this. Well, actually the breaking strain of the fine thread, it's a better quality thread, it's £15, but there's a lot more strands for every 10 millimetres, so you're actually getting more clamping force on an inch of that binding than an inch of that binding. Which begs the question, why didn't I use the nice fine binding here? Well, it would have taken forever because it's, you know, so many turns it would have been. Anyway, enough yakking. You all want to see if it will work, don't you? Well, it's 40 with no problem. It got dodgy at 50 last time. Minus 50 is 60. Of course, I'm trying to look at the tiller as well. Right, that tiller looks alright. And I've pulled it a lot further than before. Tiller's still looking good. 70. That's 26-inch draw. Right. Now, do I review the tiller or do I go a bit further, boys and girls? I think I'll go a bit further. I think it's pretty much proved the repair's good. I'll take it to 28 anyway. It's going to be a 31-inch draw. Give us some exercise. It's looking pretty good. There's 28. Grab another handful of rope. I think that flashed to about 30-inch draw. But that'll do for now. That's sort of 90 at about 30. I'll have a shifty at that. A comment about the binding. I think my £4,000 clamping force is actually pessimistic. I think it will be a lot more than that, because with the super glue and the fact that it's not just strands of string, it's all glued. You know, the glue penetrates, it actually glues to the wood, because you could see on the original grip I took off, it's no longer loose. You need a knife. You need a knife to peel this binding off. So the whole thing, it's become a composite material, you know, like your carbon fibre or your glass fibre and resin, but it's like a natural equivalent. Although cyanoacrylate glue isn't a naturally occurring thing, we could use hide, you know, hoof and horn glue and thread and make a totally natural composite. Or you could use horn and sinew. Why hasn't anyone ever thought of that? Anyway, I'm happy